Welcome to TradeTheNBA.com. This is John. This report is for the 17th of July. Start scrolling through some of the numbers right here. This happens to be the NASDAQ. We had nice record highs for the YM. No shock with that. We were expecting continuation for that one. We can see here still pretty decent cross section, though we are seeing a little bit of weakness develop in some of them. Here was the Dow with all of its buys. There's a lot of green there, very few sell signals, just a couple. And our high flyers. And here we go down to the final ones. Perfect. Let's look at the charts now. Okay, so coming off of the buy setups that started with the cyan candles, continue to move up. We opened the day and we were above the previous pivot and also making a higher lower pivot right here. Those were all good signs. We had the good continuation, and literally you had a breach crossover here where the cyan dipped below the green. You also continue to have steel moving lower. It's a little bit of weakness within that steel moving lower, unless it can dip all the way below that safety. But we still don't have any improvement in red, so we're going to have to watch this because it looks to me like a potential spider development if you're not going to have any response from the red movement here. Lower cyan pivots, though, suggest higher. So from that standpoint, and you're below zero with the cyan, those are all good things. Now we do end up with a start of a deep red, but it doesn't look like that this particular point is going to be super strong. But we will still have to respect the fact that it is shown up. We were talking about this the other day with the 50K. We expected it to come up, but we also expected it to retrace the positive extreme, which looks like it had just about done that. Well, yeah, as of the dip right down here. No real shock with that. It's pretty well behaved overall. This value here at 69.75, that would put us at new equity highs if it were to sell it at this point. But that is quite a DLC spread that developed early on back over here and began to accentuate itself to this entire decline and pretty much retraced all of the move of the previous day. Up below the red line. So from this standpoint, still okay from a health standpoint. The 5K chart, you can see it from here. We had some weakness that developed after the nice push, which is what we talked about when we were talking about pre-market coming up. Nice rise, and then usually it wants to come back and fill that back in. Then we had another run, and all you've done is filled that back in again, below the red line that took place intraday. So pretty straightforward stuff. Nothing special happening from the daily after executed a couple of additional buys after the double entry stop out on that little fake dip below the ABM right there, and then it repurchased them. So it was pretty much net wash with that setup. Nothing thrilling as far as that goes. Let's take a look at NQ. Fine from that standpoint. I mean, you've got rising steel and green. Cyan's completely under control, and you actually eased off overbought a little bit. Go figure that. YM though, okay, there we have lower cyan pivots. That's positive. You created a little bit more of an up move. You're still not getting any support though from the red, and this is where it's concerned because a dip now at any point here of the steel and a rise of the cyan is going to give you a spider and will result in satisfaction of this. So be watching for that one to suggest when the appropriate put purchase time is. Keep an eye out for it. Interesting, the pop on TLT comes with the cyan moving up, so there's only a day or so away for that to begin to turn around to the downside. USO so oversold that it finally turned around, and it could actually cross over cyan as early as today. You ended up with your yellow buy candle with that pivot lower at this particular point. It's still going to be a higher green. The key would be looking for red then to move above here to continue with the buy configuration within this setup here. So just look for the green to pass over. That would be a verification, but definitely you can play any little weakness that develops in there because it's still a solid buy signal. Gold, yes, is about to turn around too. Nice pivot up from the steel. Next, we would need to see a little green move, and you pop back above the deep red there. So definitely worth a play on that one. Like we talked about, anything above that 125. 30 range, and I wanted to trail lower, so I mean the trailing lower would be right down there, just about 125. Not a bad spot. Euro, yeah, it's kind of interesting. It's a de facto cross of the red over the green, which is not particularly thrilling, and this spread continues, so don't really look for anything from a Euro standpoint at this particular point. X puts in another bifractal orange dot. We had no objection to this retrace of the positive extreme. Wasn't a big deal. I told you to be looking for it, especially off of the ABMs. Came right down to the ABM support, bounced right off of that. Actually opened up with crossover here of the green above the cyan, and it took off during the day from that. And that was a very attractive read intraday. Speaking of intraday reads, CLF, it had started the move, turned green trend right over here. You're still a little weak, but then broke above, and then the next day, boom, took off. But you got positive extremes on that immediately. From our daily standpoint that we were looking at, we liked it because we saw the fractals for the buy setup and the target that it provided for the upside, and so it met that target very quickly. That was a pretty straightforward trade on that one. Same with WLT. It had put in the 78-minute, was dipping down, and then it opened up, boom, right above that. Actually came down a little bit, and it was a beautiful chart. 10-minute or even 15-minute were excellent. The 10-minute that I traded off of started off with the yellow buy candle and just continued, boom, from there to get a little overbought at that point, and it's retraced that at this particular step. So then it's just a matter now of looking for a new series of pivots. This cyan looks like it's coming back above there. That could create a little more weakness. Bouncing around now. Let's take a look at some of the alert stocks. Apple was an interesting one. It was looking decent, and then it turned to a sell signal on the intraday alerts and just plummeted from there. And that separation actually from a daily now moves to cyan above, so that becomes a little bit more problematic from that standpoint. Just retrace the positive extremes there. The other ones had already been taken care of. Still in the safety zone, so I'm not too concerned about it overall, but it's not looking like it's going to be some kind of turnaround pop like we saw with the nice solid steel green rise here that we had popping up, and it's still maintaining itself. Even though you've got this steel moving lower, you still have lower with the cyan, so no issues with Amazon. And moving on to Baidu. Still in the deep red, but like we said, it could take a day or so for that to start to transpire into a more negative move. We still had the rising red-white. Now we've got a meet. Now this is important because pivot up for cyan, and yeah, I would expect this to move lower swiftly. If it doesn't, then it's going to be just fine. There's been an expressed weakness with that cyan overall being above zero, but now it's kind of moved below. You had the saving grace of the steel rising above cyan along with the green pivot up from back over here, and that has kind of maintained itself. But we still have a retrace of the dip below the red line here that's going to have to take place. So I would expect some more choppiness to take place definitely in this near term. Facebook, well, it's been back and forth here, nonstop chop, but it's kind of rolling over with that. If we get the steel below green, green and or cyan, then I would expect to start to see these red have a little bit more impact. So we can see the signs that things are kind of evened out a little bit. There may be a little bit of softness coming forward here until some new impetus shows up, but overall, most of them still holding up well. Google down was fine as far as it is narrowing with these ranges, and you can see a lot of them. Netflix still in the negative category, even though the green has been holding up nicely. Any pivot lower on that should exacerbate some weakness, particularly even too if you get a pivot up of the cyan, especially since steel didn't even cross above for a bullish move. You needed that steel to cross above there to really hang on. Just indicates that more sellers than people realize, hiding, but not hiding so well. PCLN, this is not doing a whole lot of much. It's not bullish with that. Yes, you got the red going in there, but you've got no impetus of the green moving above at all. And if that green does move lower, I would expect to see a much more exacerbated move to the downside. But for now, it's just sort of trading sideways. Flat as a pancake. Which is a killer on some of those if you're trading options and that. And it's like I warn people, so you don't want to be buying calls at that particular point. You could be selling them on the pops because then at least you're earning that time premium as opposed to paying for it. Tesla, yeah, we had expected weakness with the deep red. It does cross over there, so it negates it, but that's fine. It negates it at the same time that it actually retraces the low on it. Doesn't look anything particularly exciting with the setup here. You still have rising greens now above. You've got steel doing okay, making higher pivots. So this particular point, if you want to start exploring alongside of it, you could. Does it look like it has a major breakout written all over it? If you get the red to break above this channel right here, yeah, you could see a nice pop back up very quickly. So it's worth looking at intraday. And Twitter, we didn't like anything from Twitter, and we still don't. So no change there. And switching gears, flipping back over to 5K, this happened to be the buy sell A, and I was going to point out the other day, and didn't have it in front of me. What's going to show up will be the dark red numbers, and right now they're true, so you can see them right there. And all we will be able to do is just go back in there and type in the word false, and then also you see the green pivot. And what the value is there, we can also type in false to that one as well. And click OK, and those things should disappear right in front of our eyes. Chart recycles. And this will just give you the flexibility of having these numbers on or not. In this case, clears it up completely, and then if you have your ABM on there, you'd be able to see those values to the side regardless. So and that's a little bit of what will be coming forward, and then also alerts that will notify obviously when the red happens, when a green pivot takes place, and you'll be able to turn those on and off as well, and along with each of the different component colored candles, just to make it that much more flexible to each and every person's individual desires. So it just gives choice, and choice is always good when making trading decisions. Having the ability to go with works best for your mindset and the way you like to trade. I mean, not everybody's good for the short time frames. You want a little bit longer, then you probably want to go with a little bit more of the DOC paint. These kind of flexibilities. But as always, continue to look for me on private Twitter feed, Stock Twits. Trade well. We'll talk again tomorrow.